Hey guys, what's up? GreenMachineSam back with another video, and today we have our Week 17 and Week 18. I'm going to put these into one video. I didn't really have time to record a Week 17 video, so I'm not going to focus on that game too much. We beat the Falcons. It was a good game from the offense for the most part. You know, the whole team came out and played. My main focus is on Week 18. I think this game meant more than any other game this season, especially with how we finished the season and how the season was looking after the slow start. And one thing I do want to say is it just really makes you think how bad this coaching staff is, that if they could have finished out just a couple of games, we would easily be in the playoffs right now. So it's kind of unfortunate. And, you know, as well as if some of these coaches were willing to change, we could be in the playoffs pretty easily as well, to say the least. And I don't think that's a hot take. And I had somebody try to address the fact that I was like, they need to make a change at OC. They need to make a change at OC. And I had been saying this since probably week 2 of the season, that they needed to make a change at OC. And somebody was like, I don't think it's a lack of not wanting to. I think it's a lack of not having anybody on the staff that could really do anything differently or is any different, or, you know, just they don't have another person on the staff that they feel comfortable calling plays. At some point you have to change, though, you know, especially when, you know, and this is something I wanted to talk about, is it literally is the same thing that happens every single time we have an okay team. The defense plays well. The defense is a top 5 unit. The defense is running well, but the offense can't get anything going and leaves the defense out on the field to get fucking slaughtered. It happened in 2018. It happened in 2019. Right? We held the fucking Eagles to, what was it, 16 fucking points? It was always the case. It always has been and always will be. The Chicago Bears have never been able to put together a competent offense. They just haven't. Or at least a sustainable, competent offense. You know, there'll be spurts, there'll be moments, there'll be all this and that where they play well, but then next thing you know, they're struggling. They're just not getting anything going. And it's really unfortunate. It really is, that every single time we build a decent team, the defense plays well, the offense has potential but never reaches it. It's getting to the point where being a Bears fan really does suck. Like, if you know your team's going to be bad, like some of these other teams have been over the past decade, 2 decades, whatever, I feel like it's somewhat easier knowing that your team's going to be bad, seeing how bad that roster is going into the season and being like, oh, I know we're not winning games, I'm not going to get my hopes up. Versus this where, you know, you had MVP discussions about whether or not Fields could take the next step and become an MVP, you know, with his running ability and getting DJ Moore, and then none of the other receivers showing up. I think there was a stat where it was like all the other receivers combined had less than 800 yards and only 1 touchdown in between them. And then DJ Moore had 1,300 yards and, what was it, like 9 touchdowns. Cole Kmet added another like 606 touchdowns or something like that. I don't have the stats directly in front of me. And that brings me to one of my points. And it literally just says, if it ain't Kmet or Moore, it ain't fucking happening. And I think that's just a brief summary of this season. It was either the running game from one running back, or it was Kmet or Moore. And one of the things that I literally had written down as well is, and I think this was in my last video, was the only offense we have is Fields making a good move in the pocket, scrambling, and then finding Moore or Kmet, it feels like. That's the only time big plays really happen for us. Or it's Moore making somebody miss. Or it's Kmet, you know, somebody not accounting for Kmet and Kmet getting open down the seam or down the sideline. I really don't understand why Eberflus would continuously let this happen. At some point, you got to try something. And people, and like I said, somebody was like, well, we don't have any experienced play callers. Well, no shit, we don't have any experienced play callers. But let the quarterback coach. See if he can get something going. Let the pass game coordinator see if he can get something going. Hell, if we have to, let the fucking O-line coach call plays. Like, I'm not saying change the offense as a whole, as in like change, you know, the calls and change the, you know, wording and all this and that. I'm just saying let somebody else call the plays. That brings me into one of my points where it's like Luke Getsy never changed during the season. The only time he did change was, for some reason, when Tyson Bagent was in there, he decided to let him rip it a little bit more. He will never change. He's going to lose his job because of it, or he should lose his job because of it. And just play predictability was at an all-time high in the Green Bay game. You know, screens on a 3rd and 13, a screen on 3rd and 22. Anytime Mercedes Lewis is in the game, look for a run to his side because apparently they think he's an extra offensive lineman. 2 quick pitches back to back, one to the right, one to the left. Let's see if it works both times. It got to the point where, halfback dives up the middle. I don't even remember the last time really seeing Kari Blossom game. Is he even on the team anymore? Is he injured? What's going on with him? You literally have a dude whose main job is to run block in Kari Blossom game, and you don't use him. You'd rather use Mercedes Lewis because he's 6'6", and 250 pounds, and is a good blocker. Every time you put that motherfucker in the game, they know it's a run. Every time I see that motherfucker trot out onto the field, I'm like, oh, it's a run to his side, or it's a play action, or it's going to be some PA boot where he's going to leak out late and Fields is probably going to find him, or it's going to be a Cole Kmet corner. Play predictability was so fucking terrible. Like I said, at some point, Eberflus had to have a thought to himself, I gotta change coordinators because I don't want to lose my job. Not a whole ton of fun stuff. The last 3 points for offense that I have is O-line still definitely needs help. Cody Whitehair's gone. He's getting cut. I know Eddie Jackson is probably getting cut as well. I know he doesn't play O-line, but we need a center at minimum, and then we should probably pick up another guard. I don't think Nate Davis is the option. I think he'll be gone after next year. So if we just draft one this year, if we have a chance at a good guard, I think we take it. Fields' pocket movement has gotten worse, but I don't know if that's just partially due to the offensive line / the play calling, or even the the coaching of this coaching staff. Like I've talked about before, is it Luke Getsy telling him not to scramble? Is it Luke Getsy trying to force him to be like Aaron Rodgers? I have no idea, but his pocket movement has somehow gotten worse. It seems like he's moving into sacks more than anything, and it's kind of annoying. I don't know if that's his fault, if it's the O-line fault, if it's Luke Getsy's fault, if it's whoever's fault, Janko's fault. I forget who the pass game coordinator is, but it definitely feels like his movement in the pocket has gotten worse, and I don't think that's easily fixable. And running back by committee has worked this season to an extent, but I think there needs to be a discussion of who the number one is, who's the workhorse in that group of 3, in that group of 2. You can always do running back by committee, but you have to know the pecking order, right? We saw it in the Colts-Texans game. They took out their guy in Jonathan Taylor. Boom, that third-string guy drops the ball. I think there needs to be a serious discussion about, we can still do running back by committee. It's just one of these guys has to be the lead guy. One of these guys has to be number 1. The defensive side of the ball, the run defense just doesn't work when the linebackers can't run, and that brings the major point, which is Sweat needs help. I like Dexter. I like Billings a lot, but I think we do need a dominant inside defensive tackle until either Dexter or Pickens can get to that factor. I think we should look to trade for one, and then I think we should draft an edge. I just think the best thing for us is to shore up that defensive line as much as possible. Because when these linebackers can't run, you guys saw it, Aaron Jones had a field day on those stretch plays, on those outside zones. When the linebackers can't get sideline to sideline and make those tackles and fill those gaps, you see what happens. I think both safeties may have to end up leaving the team. I think Eddie Jackson's going to get cut regardless. But Brisker, man, when he's out of coverage, when he's not having a good game, he's replacement level safety. I love Brisker, don't get me wrong. I've wanted to root for him. Hell, I was calling for him to have a big jump, and he had a pretty good, amazing year, and I was even calling for him to go to the Pro Bowl. But man, his coverage skills just are not there. I don't know if he needs to have a sit down with the coaches and understand more of his role, if we need to find his role better, whatever. I don't know if it's maybe he's just not playing in the right system as well. That could always be the case. He may not be playing in the correct system with Eberflus. And I never want to root against a player, right? I love Brisker. I thought Brisker would revitalize Eddie Jackson. I thought those two together would be a good pairing. I thought Eddie Jackson and Jaquan Brisker were going to be a decent pairing this year. I'm going to say this. I never thought Eddie Jackson would be back to the level that he was once at, but he would at least be a capable safety. And so far this year, it just doesn't look like it. It doesn't feel like they're out there. It feels like replacement level players are out there. Speed kills us from the receiver spot. I can say that much for a fact. The corners that we have aren't particularly the greatest athletes. I think Tyreek Stevenson is probably the best athlete we have at corner, and then goes Jalen Johnson. Terrell Smith is a good corner, but he's just not the most athletic guy. And I don't think Kyler Gordon is either. They both played well, don't get me wrong. I'm not going to sit here and shit on them, right? When your offense can only go out and score 9 points and leaves you on the field for majority of the game, that's not really your fault. I'm not going to shit on them for that. I'm just saying what I'm seeing. I think speed is definitely something we have to not work on, but understand how to defend that better. I think that, especially with the Packers having a lot of speed, the Vikings having a lot of speed at their receiver positions, I think that's something that Eberflus needs to understand going into next year and understand how to play against better. I think that's something that we need to look at. It definitely felt like a lot of the speed guys that we went against this year were the ones that were killing us. It wasn't necessarily the jump ball guys, the physical catch guys, the route runners. I think it was a lot of speed that really killed us at times. And like I said, same old defense, same old story. Good defense, but the offense leaves us on the field to die. Can't really do much about it. I'm not going to complain at the defense. I didn't complain at the defense back in 2018. I didn't complain at the defense in 2019. I've never complained at the defense for getting stuck out on the field and them not wanting to be there. You know, your offense needs to hold time of possession, and Getsy in that offense just wasn't doing that. Coaching, Eberflus does sound like he is back. At least there's reports that he will be back for another season, that Poles wants to finish out this regime of at least Flus and Fields together, and then potentially bringing in a new coach and QB next year if they don't get it going. I don't love it, but I understand why. Getsy needs to be fired, though. If Eberflus is unwilling to fire him, I think that almost constitutes should be getting fired. If Harbaugh really had a chance to come to the NFL, and if he did want to come to the Bears, I would be willing to ask Eberflus if he would be willing to stay on the staff and let him coach the defense and let Harbaugh come in, because I think Harbaugh runs a 4-3 anyway. So I'd be willing to keep Flus. I know he wouldn't want to. I know there would be a dynamic and a power struggle. If there's a possibility of Harbaugh coming to Chicago, I would definitely want that to happen. That's definitely for sure. But I think Flus is back. I think Fields is back for another year. And I can kind of see where Poles is getting at. You know, if Fields and Eberflus just don't work, if the offense still struggles, if Fields still struggles, if the team just struggles, you can get rid of Eberflus next year. You can get rid of Fields next year a little bit easier. And, you know, you should have a decently established team, I think. I don't think you'll have a great team, but I think you'll have a decently established team going into the next season then. You know, I think the offensive line will be built a little better. The receiving core, the running backs. I think a lot of this team will be built a little bit better, but I don't think we'll be in a great state. I don't think, you know, if the team was a great team and if it was just Fields, then I think we could still win some games. I do see where Poles is coming from, but if he sticks with Flus and Fields for this year and we have another significantly down year, bad year, just all in all, just downright bad, if he doesn't draft well, I think there will be a genuine call for his job. Look, I get that he got the number 1 overall pick from the Panthers. He ended up getting DJ Moore. He got a second, all this and that. We drafted Darnell Wright, but you can't let his atrocities go, right? You can't let him let Roquan walk. You know, because imagine Roquan and TJ Edwards together. People always want to be like, well, if we had Roquan, we probably wouldn't have gotten our linebackers. Imagine Roquan and TJ together instead of Tremaine and TJ. You know, Roquan, TJ, and Jack Sanborn. Holy shit, dude. A whole bunch of other stuff that has happened over his tenure, you know, drafting Velus Jones over guys that were younger, better, and have developed better. Not getting a whole ton of value in those mid rounds, I feel like, is definitely a downfall of him right now. I think there will be a discussion going into next year if Flus and Fields struggle, but I do understand why he would stick with Flus and Fields. I don't love it. I understand it, like I've said before. I understand it, but I don't love it. Going into the offseason, there's 100 different possibilities, right? We haven't confirmed that Fields is staying, but I feel like if you're keeping Flus, you're keeping Fields. If you're not keeping Flus, I don't think you're keeping Fields. I think I've been on that train for probably half the season now, where it's if one's staying, they're both staying. If one's not staying, neither one of them are staying. We could be wrong. There could be a possibility that he does get fired. I wish he would. It's going to be a crazy offseason. I get to sit around and watch good, meaningful football that I'm not, you know, super attached to, which is going to be awesome because then I get to just sit there and enjoy the sport in the playoffs. Hopefully it's some good football in the playoffs this year, and then we will get to the offseason. We'll probably have about a month off where there's not a whole ton going on. I don't think free agency starts until March, sometime in March, late February, something like that. And if you guys are wondering, that's when roster updates for Madden will come out. That's when we'll I'm still getting roster updates out for 2K, but that's when the main roster updates for Madden are going to come out. But with that being said, guys, if you guys have any questions, comments, concerns about, the team, if you guys have anything that you guys think I'm wrong in, if you guys have any, disagreements with what I've stated today about the team, go ahead and leave them down below. This season was a shit show. Starting off, 0 for 4, going 1 for 5, going 1-5. Losing that Broncos game, losing that Detroit game, losing a lot of these games really sucks. Having the same game plan against the Green Bay Packers in Week 1 and Week 18 is kind of absurd. Something has to change though going into next season. Flus is like 1-11 against division opponents, so I think that's my main topic of conversation is he needs to play better against the division opponents. If he doesn't, he definitely cannot keep his job. But like I said, if you guys enjoy this content or any of the content here on my channel, I'd appreciate it if you guys stick around and subscribe. I got more videos coming out like this. This will probably be coming out on a Tuesday or a Wednesday, and then the next Titans video should be coming out a day or two after that. I will probably be spacing out some of the videos about every other day. It just makes the content work a little bit better. The content gets pushed out a little bit better, it seems like. But with that being said, guys, I'm out. Peace.